How about that button? That button works now. There we go. Okay.
Hello.
Hey, Mustache. Good
Oh,
day.
yeah.
Oh,
Right,
yes.
I'll stop dancing now.
Down.
So,
but it was
yeah.
so entertaining.
Yeah, so the short version is yes, there was a Windows update this morning, which means naturally that Windows had to decide my microphone was connected to a trombone as opposed to OBS. So, which is really awkward because I don't own a trombone, which is what was slowing the whole audio down.
Connected to the trombone.
We don't know that maybe the trombone would work as a streaming.
Yes, but I don't own a trombone is the problem, so it doesn't matter how well it would work. I'm a drummer.
I used to play the trombone when I was in high school, just letting you know. That was one of
So
the
much
reasons.
sense.
And then I played that until I was at year 9, and then I learnt the oboe.
Ah, interesting.
Played the violin poorly. I can play, just not well. I was never interested. I wanted the sax, and I didn't get the sax, so I played the violin out of spite.
I wanted to play the saxophone.
I think that's pretty much if there's a character-defining line I've ever heard you come up with is, I didn't get what I want, so I played the violin out of spite. I think that frames you delightfully.
I feel like yep. I'm done. I feel like I've summed up both me and my character. Bye.
Mic drop.
the screen.
And that is Chantel, everybody. She has been with us for a year now, and she's done.
I actually did play the saxophone, so
Yeah, you were the kind of kid that I was jealous
it was all
of.
right.
I wanted to play the saxophone, and after my first couple of lessons, the saxophone teacher said, "Have you considered playing a brass instrument?" And I don't know what that meant. Well, I mean, I didn't at that age, but now I do.
What does that mean?
It means
You sucked.
it means I wasn't good at like the embouchure required.
Oh, it's the reeded instrument.
Yeah,
It's
reeded
the-
instrument.
Yeah, it's the rig.
And I ended up being like quite a good trumpet player. But I played euphonium first, which is much like a trombone, but
Euphonium. It's like a little teeny tiny tuba.
Yes. Mine was literally like in primary school. It's about like the order in which instruments come out. Like when teachers decide to join the school and like offer lessons to the kids. And so my parents saw violin and went, yes, she's going to learn that. And then like maybe a month or so later, the sax came along and I was like, but I want to be like Lisa because I'm like Lisa. And then didn't get to be like Lisa.
Awkward.
My sister played the saxophone. She played the baritone sax.
At my wedding, my sister then said,
played that as well.
hey, you never knew who broke your violin. It was me. And now because I'm standing in front of a lot of people, you can't hurt me for it.
Yeah.
It was on that day that her sister discovered she was wrong.
She just brought out this whole list of
Unless she
things
was
that
wearing
she
an
had done that I didn't know why.
suit of armor for a wedding dress.
That's a phone call conversation when you're in a different country. That's not a we've taken you to a public space so you won't cause a scene conversation.
It
At
worked
that moment's
really
like, have
well
you
when
met
I
me?
sat
I'll
there.
cause a goddamn scene. You watch me. Anyway,
I
welcome
was
back to
sitting there like,
NPR.
I will
Is
hurt you.
High School Musical or Reflective?
Welcome to Unlawful Disorder, where we are unlawful and disordered.
I was gonna say, I deeply apologize.
We're one of those things.
I deeply apologize to anyone who's expecting a role-playing game this morning. That's probably just not going to happen, but you're welcome to hang out and laugh a lot. I mean...
You're here waiting for a
Unordered
role-playing game.
dislawful.
Must be new. Welcome. We appreciate it.
Okay, so continuing on with the podcast theme.
Yep. So trauma delivered by our siblings.
And go.
I'm just gonna say, I think the most irritating one for me, quite honestly, is the fact that my sister and I are remarkably different people. We were both in Sea Cadets, for example, at one point, and I was straight up asked by someone which one of us was adopted. Because no one, like, we are just so radically different people that no one could get their collective head around the idea that we shared a common parent. And so, for me, music is something I have to work very hard at. Physical skills are things, actually, I have to work very hard at. So a lot of people, for example, in the SCA know me because I'm very, very good with Renaissance rapier technique. And everyone thinks I'm a natural, and no, I've just been at it for 25 years or 30 years. So I'd like to think I've learned something in that period. Well, as a drummer, I was working very hard. I was doing lessons and whatever. And so my sister and a couple of her friends from the Sea Cadet band group came over, and we were going to do a little bit of a jam. And we were working. Duran Duran was very popular back in the day. And so we're all trying to figure out Union of the Snake. And so my sister's playing saxophone, and she says, "Okay, I'm having some, like, the fingering on this point. Do you mind if I just sit at the drum kit for a moment?" And yeah, sure, whatever. And she sits down and blows through the riff, like, that I've been struggling with on my part-time for 3 weeks now. It's just, okay, that's cool. Now I figure out what it is. I just couldn't figure this bit out, but now that I see how it works on the drums, I can figure out the fingering on the sax. And I'm sitting there going, like, you're awesome, and now I want to throw the drum kit out the window.
Yeah.
A friend of mine,
Yeah.
can't remember, he was there, I think he was in India at the time, and he's a very accomplished musician who then decided to become a doctor because that's who he is.
Oh gosh. Just decided to be a doctor one
Yeah,
day.
it's like this like, but he was like, his partner at the time was like, "Oh, look at all this person's selling all these really cool instruments. If I, maybe there's one that I might like and I could learn it and we can, and then she was like, we could, when you're doing these jam sessions, you could join in." And she was looking at this thing and she was really struggling going, but she's like, "Oh yeah, I can kind of see how this would work." And she was getting a couple of notes out of it. And then he sort of like, "Oh, that's cool. Can I see it?" And he's like, looked at it, held it for a little bit, moved his hand, he's like, tried different like fingering positions, like without even blowing into it, and just went, "Okay, yeah, all right." And then starts blowing into it and just played like something really basic, like 3 blind mice or something, on an instrument that he had merely seen someone else play. And she went, "I'm gonna get something else."
I've been trying to teach myself bass guitar for the last couple of weeks, and my fingers are wrecked. But I found like the translation of music, it does, like, it carries in really interesting ways. Like, I look at a guitar and I can see it like a piano, because
really?
like piano was my reference point for like learning music, and that happened a lot while I was learning trumpet. Once I got good at trumpet or euphonium and then trumpet, I got used to seeing those notes differently as trumpet notes or whatever. But whenever I start a new instrument, it's trying to translate it as a piano for me. Is like, that's like my base language for music.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I've been getting back into doing singing lessons, and my teacher has recently been like, "Oh, hang on, we're going to get you to try this," and it's the opening tenor part for Handel's Messiah, this Baroque, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, I adore Handel's Messiah. Yes.
And it's like, I've not sung in this style before or heard this thing before, but it's great. But then learning it, there'd be points where we'd stop and he'd be like, "Okay, no, it's not. You sang it like this, and it should be like this." I'm like, "That's not what's written on my page. I sang what was on my page." And he's like, "Yeah, okay. So when writing this style back when it was, new, there was a lot of assumed knowledge that the writers just wouldn't put on the score because they knew that everyone would know to do it in a certain way, so they didn't have to write it in, and so they didn't." And I was just like, "Oh, that's amazingly unhelpful."
What do you mean?
Wow, how dare you? How dare
Are
you
you
not?
talking about like dynamics?
Do the same
Like, was it
now.
volume or
It's
is
literally
it?
different notes.
Yeah.
It
just
shorthand.
Implicitly, if I write an A, you're supposed to play a B. Why? Because we all
It's
know that A
basically
means B.
it was like
Yeah.
it was a part which is like it's written as the same note for both things, but it's like because it's like the end of a bit it's coming off this, you actually do the other one like higher, like and then drop down into it. And I was just like, I mean, I can do that, but
why wouldn't you write that? Yeah.
and it's just like it's which is, you know, I found very interesting to learn. And it wasn't like meh, but it's just sort of like that's like I get it.
Yeah,
like,
it's
they're not exactly thinking, you know, in the future someone's going to look at this and have never done this before. It's like this is because who does music from the past ever at the time? No one.